So you join me today on a very wet and miserable looking Hong Kong island, although it does kind of look fantastic. But we're in one of my favourite cars in game, one of the most aggressive sounding cars in game, the Mercedes AMG GTR. I absolutely love this car. I do think it's underrated. I don't think it's used enough, and I'm glad we got to use it this week on the live weekly events. Now all the focus has been on the McLaren, but today we can use the AMG GTR in the Misty Climb. 4.5 mile foggy sprint. Now we already know it's quite wet this one, but it's the 570S McLaren against the Mercedes AMG GTR. Now everybody, it does seem for the most part, has been using the McLaren to set the times. Some fantastic times on the board, 2:15s, 2:16s, 2:20s. But when I look through this leaderboard, there's a lack of AMG GTR times. We can see the Heartbreaker here with a 2:24.53, and one other time up towards the top 10 a little bit further down, around about 2:26. Now my only time is a 2:40 in a stock McLaren. Yeah, there we go, 2:26 Balor King. So my instant thought process was use the McLaren, but why not use the AMG GTR and see where we can actually climb up to on the leaderboard? How do we have to have this car set up? We know it's very powerful and a lot of power goes through the back end. Can we target 2:26, 2:24? Can we reach for the stars and target 2:15? Well, we're going to come into a fully upgraded AMG GTR. Not going to go through the build because it's just every part applied to it. Now I do have semi-slick tyres fitted. I went quite brave with this, although it's a wet road surface. They actually worked out alright for the most part. Launching the AMG off the line, it's obviously going to be hard to get traction initially, but we did manage to out-traction the McLarens off the line, and we have already got quite a clear lead. And it's going to stay that way for the rest of the race itself. Now the initial part of this race is very, very fast indeed. It's basically the case of picking the correct racing line. Now many people go on the right hand side of this. I prefer the left hand side for when we come down to the bottom. It lines us up better for that first right hand turn. I don't think we save all too much time, going on the right hand side of the road just here. Hitting 200 miles an hour is going to be easy in the AMG GTR. But as we do come down to this section, I like to be on the left hand side, open up the turn here onto the right hander. Yeah, we lock up a little bit, we do just touch those bushes, we don't get the cleanest of turn-ins, but overall it felt quite good. There's obviously one issue with the AMG GTR, and it is the vast amount of power this thing sends through its back wheels. It's so unbelievably torquey. Adding on to that wet road condition, it's incredibly hard to get the power down. Now of course we're using this with no traction control, so we're fully braving it, fully sending it into this race to try and get a reasonable lap time. Trying to get some traction around these right-handers is incredibly difficult. Around this big sweeping right-hander, the back end constantly wants to step out, tries to power slide all the way around. We actually let it power slide just a little bit, but we try to keep it under control, get it back round into the left-hander just here, try and get some power down, but as we do, once again that back end steps out. Tricky right-hander right here, want to get nice and close to that barrier on the inside, just managing to miss it. Then we can start to push uphill once again, let the torque of the GTR pull us uphill. But as we can see, touching any of these curbs is going to kick that back end out so unbelievably easily into a tricky right-hander here. The front end of this thing doesn't want to turn in like I want it to, but I think that's down to the road conditions that we do have. Round this big sweeping right-hander again, doesn't feel like it wants to turn in. As soon as we get the power down, the back end again wanting to slide out, but we got around it alright for the most part so far. When we start to tighten up here again, bouncing off the curbs into the left hand to get the power down again, just let that back end slide round, let it do its thing. Jump it up through the gearbox if we need to get some traction, it's always good. Not making the best of entries into this right hander here, then things start to get very squirmy as we do push uphill, left hander, right hander just here, and we can see that back end stepping out all over the road. It's very hard to get traction in this car, but we do manage to lay down our benchmark time here of 2:30.49 with the AMG GTR up to 937 RP. We push up into the top 21, but we've still got around about 4 to 6 seconds we're looking to make up to catch up with the likes of Balor King and M the Heartbreaker with their 2:26 and 2:24. So the thought process here, where do we get traction? Do we have to start using driving aids? And we're going to try that out because I do think the driving aids are going to be a big bonus to this car. Previously when I was driving this, I did have traction control on, and this was an absolute pleasure to drive. Now this isn't going to be breaking news, this is not groundbreaking whatsoever. What a surprise. Stability control, traction control improves the performance of a car, who would have thought it? But with the AMG GTR, having so much torque and so much power through the back end. Using a little bit of driver aid sometimes, well, it's the necessary evil. I like driving without traction control, but in this car, it completely transforms the way it drives, in my opinion, launching it off the line so much quicker. Obviously, coming down some of these faster sections is going to make absolutely no difference whatsoever, but when things start to tighten up and the turns start to come at you quickly and you're trying to get some power down, well, we're looking for traction control to be our best friend here. We can see it still allows enough slip. I believe I had traction control set around about 25%, as we're losing frames again. Ever since Season 3 came out, I've been losing frames on these recordings. When I physically play the game, it's perfectly fine, but when it comes into the recording, I'm losing frames. I am still investigating, guys. Hopefully I can get that rectified soon. In through the big left-hander here, we can see the traction control kicking in and the back end not stepping out as much. And as I mentioned, this thing is an absolute pleasure to drive. With a little bit of traction control, we do still get a little bit of slide here, but the big power slide round the left-hander here, the right-hander, sorry, well, it's very manageable. And once again, it actually transforms, in my opinion, the way the GTR drives. Yes, I would like to drive it without traction control, but given the wet road conditions, given the amount of power that is going through the back of this thing, I don't mind using a little bit of traction control from time to time, and I think that's how a lot of people are getting very quick times up on the leaderboard. As we do power through though, in through the fast sections here, we actually feel like we can carry more speed through to it, relying a little bit more on the traction control. If the back end steps out, it's going to cut the power down for us, make it more manageable. In through this right-hander, we're turning in a hell of a lot better already. Yes, the back end's still going to step out. It's always going to step out unless we have traction control at 100%. But it's a hell of a lot more manageable, and it brings me back to why I love this car. I thought early days in the game, this was an absolute joy to drive. Coming back into it with a little bit of traction control applied, you know, it just brings me back to why I genuinely love this car, not only for the sound of it, not only for the fact I think it's one of the best looking Mercedes on the road, but with a little bit of traction, it becomes an absolute pleasure to drive this as a GT car. Across the line there, about 25%, I believe it was, traction control, maybe 50%, we do manage to get that 2:26. Unfortunately, we didn't manage to overtake Balor, we didn't get close to the Heartbreakers time, but 2:26.59, just creeping into the 2:26 there, I was actually reasonably happy with that time. I wasn't expecting to challenge the top of the leaderboard. Maybe if I persist a little bit more, I'll maybe break up another 3 or 4 seconds. I do think that is manageable, and I do think that is achievable, and perhaps with different tyres or playing about the gear ratios. But I was just coming into that race there to actually enjoy what, in my opinion, is, well, the best Mercedes in game, but one of my favourite Mercedes on the road today, the AMG GTR. It sounds fantastic, it looks fantastic, and it's got quite an awesome livery applied to it as well, guys. Let me know if you've been using the AMG GTR in-game, what you think of it, and additionally, if you are using traction control from time to time. Guys, hope you enjoyed today's video. As usual, if you haven't done so already, please do smash the like button and do consider subscribing. And of course, stay tuned for more updates on Test Drive Unlimited Solar Crown.